know what that means. It's time for Power Bombed in the Pit. We're two tag team partners who love loud music, comedy, art, but most of all, we love the people who do all those things and love pro wrestling. Lexington, Kentucky has had a rich musical history, from Richard Hell being born there, the Judds, and even a couple of Backstreet Boys, for fuck's sake. But now we have another band from there that would throw salt in their eyes and give them the stomach claw. And then we have Tread from Tojo Yamamoto here today. Thanks for joining us, Tread.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Well, first off, we really appreciate you being here, taking time out of your schedule and everything.
Yeah.
So first off, how did you get into wrestling?
Well, born into it in a way, raised by, for the most part, and I won't give you too much of my family history other than I was born to a very young mother who had aspirations of being a country music star. So she was away a lot, and my grandparents basically raised me, and they loved wrestling. And it was I'm old enough that we had 3 television channels. There was no cable. And noon on Saturdays was wrestling that originated in Memphis, in the Memphis territory, and they had a Saturday morning broadcast, and it aired on our local television up here in Kentucky. And this Memphis wrestling, Jerry Jarrett Promotions, Nick Goulas. I think I don't know. I mean, I could go back pretty easily and figure out the exact dates, but it was Nick Goulas, and Jarrett worked for him. And then Jarrett basically started his own promotion and kind of took the whole area from Goulas, and all those wrestlers, they flopped back and forth and eventually just went with Jarrett. So anyway, that was the era when I was a tiny kid. Jarrett was the face, and Tojo Yamamoto was the heel in that, and there was a very young Jerry Lawler, with manager Sam Bass, or the heels were like masked guys called the interns. A great gimmick of like the manager was like, they were like evil hospital workers.
Love it.
The medics and the interns and all this stuff. But and Jerry Jarrett was the bleach blonde, totally not in shape, sort of baby face who had like sparkly trunks. So I was a kid, and I was a blonde haired kid. And so I gravitated towards, oh, wow, look at this good guy, looks like me, sort of thing. White wrestling boots, sparkly tights. And then Tojo was just playing into all of the bad jingoistic post World War II, bad guy trope that he had done very well on all through the South, and it kind of landed in the Memphis area, and was, my grandparents, they bought in 100%. So I bought in 100%. My grandmother used to cuss Tojo.
My great grandmother did. She threw a cup of chew at him once.
Oh man!
I mean, it's so funny. And then that time period, I don't think they were coming to they may have done some shows in Lexington. We had high school shows then. I mean, it wasn't even, they ultimately ended up in Rupp Arena in Lexington, which is where the University of Kentucky Wildcat basketball team plays, and tons of arena rock shows in that area. But at that time, that hadn't even been built, and they were doing, regional territory shows. I think it may be the high school where Richard Hell went to high school.
Nice.
It's also the high school where Elwood, our guitar player, went to high school. So Lexington's a fairly, it's the second largest city in Kentucky. There's Louisville and Lexington, and then everything else is kind of quite a bit more rural, except for the communities that kind of, surround the cities. So they would do high school shows in Lexington, in Louisville, and sometimes in parts of Eastern Kentucky. So that's kind of how I got into wrestling. I was just born into it, and it didn't really ever go away. We went from Memphis and the whole Memphis thing in through the 70s and 80s, and then ICW, the PAFO ICW, which was Lanny and Randy Savage. And at that time, I was just getting into my early teens, and I had a really good friend whose mom worked at the local television station where ICW was broadcast. So we would go to TV tapings.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I saw Savage pretty much from day one on local television here. And then he lived in just these terrible, like three wrestlers and a guy that worked at the jail who could have wrestled. They lived in these terrible apartments in Lexington, and I remember they got busted at the Pick Pack grocery for stealing steaks. They had like steaks down their pants and stuff. This is like early, obviously, pre WWF Randy Savage. And then I don't know how much you're familiar with the whole Memphis thing, because basically
I grew up in Alabama, so I just like right at the tail end of the territories. Yes. But
so that battle between ICW and Memphis was part a work and part real, because they really were battling over the territory there. And ICW, I mean, it was, I hate saying it because I love it. It was a pretty terrible product compared to Memphis. It was super low budget. And they had some old timers that were training guys. Bob Roop was training Savage, and of course, the Poffo family, it was like just a wrestling family. So there was a lot of bringing Bob Roop and Garvin in to help train these young guys. I had a buddy who was a little bit older than me. It was like a family friend from a little community outside of Lexington called Georgetown, who was a jobber on ICW. Like I'd known him my whole life. And I thought, oh my God, he's wrestling. Of course, he was just whore out of shape. And he would just take that absolutely destroyed. And he didn't wrestle. His wrestling name was Terry Harris, which was like about 2 letters off what his real name was, which I never did understand. Like, dude, if you're gonna like change your name, change it to something halfway cool or something. I just flip a couple letters. But he jobbed on television. It was on opposite. ICW was on opposite of Saturday Night Live at the time. So it was like 11:30 Saturday nights, local television. So there's a huge chunk of SNL that I really never saw. It was probably the most important Saturday Night Lives ever. I was watching really, really zero budget ICW wrestling. And then all of that stuff happened with Memphis and ICW, kind of a work, kind of not, of them fighting over the territory, and Savage showed up at Rupp Arena, and basically the police were there. I mean, it was covered in like the Lexington newspapers as like a real incident, they did a run in on Lawler and all this stuff, because he was like, I'm not going to be denied. You're going to wrestle me, and blah, blah, blah. So just a fantastic era to be, a young, obnoxious teenager. And then when it really did start going to Rupp, it would come, they would wrestle in Memphis on Mondays. Tuesday, they would go to Louisville. Wednesday, they would go to Evansville, and Thursday they would come to Lexington. So they just, made the rounds. And so they had those Saturday television shows were how you sold all the angles. Mm-hmm. Like it had to be new every week to get asses in the seats, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the whole week. They had to, whatever happened on Saturday was going to play out the rest of the week, and something new is going to come. And so it was just it was a cool time. You didn't know at the time that it was going to be like 40 years later, you were going to look back and go, it was maybe one of the coolest territories, to to be following. And it just so happens that Elwood, we weren't friends or even acquaintances anytime during then, but he was doing the same thing I was doing. He was watching it in another part of town,
That's right.
Yeah.
Here you are.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Sweet.
So that's kind of my history with wrestling to some extent. And then I just continued into, Vince and WWF and WWE and WCW and so on and so forth.
Yeah, that's pretty much the same path I went from the territories to WWF, and it was all from the races. I didn't watch.
I lost at some point when it got, very cartoonish. I was almost too old and too cool for it at that time, and at that point I had discovered punk rock and it was a whole different. My energy was going somewhere else,
Which leads to my next question. I was going to ask you, were you still watching when you got into punk rock and stuff? But
not as much. Still paying attention to it, but a little too cool for it at the time. But you couldn't not watch it. I mean, you could not see it at the time. In the heyday of the early WWF, you really couldn't not watch it. But we're very fortunate in about 70 miles, 65, 70 miles from Lexington is Cincinnati, Ohio. And right on the Kentucky side of the Ohio River is a little community called Newport, which at one time was kind of like second in organized crime, only to Chicago. It was kind of referred to as like a little Chicago. Wow. It was a river city.
A lot of bootlegging going through.
Yes, it was a river city. There was a racetrack there, and there was organized crime. And there was a bar there that had been there forever called the Jockey Club. And someone started booking punk shows there. Early days punk shows like Black Flag, Ramones.
Oh, sweet.
And I was 17 when that started happening. And I had an older friend who was 18, 19 years old who had a Ford Pinto. And we drive the 65 miles. We started going back and forth to all these shows. We met a couple guys in Cincinnati who went to the University of Cincinnati who were a little bit older than us, and they would let us crash. And we would go up for like all those shows. 75-cent Foster's oil cans. And I saw Husker Du, Replacements, Black Flag, Charged GBH, Ramones, a ton. And then just tons of local regional bands. Detroitson.
Oh, God, that's one of my favorite bands. I love them so much.
And then so Lexington kind of caught on to that, and a few really good bands in that era started in Lexington. Louisville ultimately had a better music scene long term than Lexington did, but early punk days, the Lexington bands were much better than the Louisville bands, I thought, and I still kind of feel that way. And someone just published a book of all the Jockey Club flyers.
Oh, wow.
And so it's out there. You take a look. I'll send you guys a link and you can post it or whatever, because it's kind of cool. And there's just a shit ton of Lexington bands represented in that whole mess. At that time, I didn't know any of these Lexington band guys. I was like completely out of like the scene. I was just like I was younger, few years younger than everyone. And I was just always kind of going and watching and like scared to death of all like the Lexington punks. Like I'm going to get beat up by all these guys, And ultimately I ended up friends with a ton of them. A ton of them are still around, but some of them have passed due to drugs and cancer and everything else. But it was a pretty vibrant scene in Kentucky there for like from probably 82 to 84, 85. There was a lot going on. A lot of those bands toured Canada, toured all around the country. Probably the biggest band from Lexington at that time was a band. I know there's a West Coast band called Active Ingredients, but before those guys, there was a Kentucky band called Active Ingredients that toured with Dead Kennedys. And
I think I've seen some flyers with that on it.
And Lawrence, the lead singer of that band, he's still around. We talk all the time. He's a good dude. Kenny, the guitarist, he's a good friend of Elwood's, and all of those guys are still around. And Lawrence still continues to record. I mean, he's been awesome. Active. He's been active since about 1981. He's still kicking it. He's a hell of a
That's right. He never lost the passion, man.
No. He's a hell of a visual artist. I guess just like a month ago, he had a gallery show, and it was literally like, hey, man, we all went, and it was like, man, it's the punk rock nursing home. All of us there. But it's pretty awesome because he's still out there kicking ass, and his current band is really good too.
Yeah, send us a link for that.
I will.
Check it out.
They're called Rabbi Feber, and Elwood. They also existed in the 90s, and Elwood played guitar for them.
Oh,
our bands played together back then, but we never played together in a band. Like my old band and his band would play shows together, and he was in multiple bands, and I played shows with all of his bands with my band, but we never really
connected until now.
Crossed paths until years ago. Until we got old enough to like, okay, maybe we should do it now. And he's as much a wrestler. I'll tell you this, for current wrestling, probably the last decade, he's a bigger wrestling fan than I am because he's been on the road with ZZ Top. You know, I don't know how much you know about Elwood or you looked up.
Yeah, I mean, I know that he's been a tech for ZZ Top forever.
Yes.
And,
Yeah. And so I think part of his solace on the road is just watching wrestling.
That's awesome.
He basically has, like if you go back to the early 2000s or whatever, everyone had all their CDs and binders. He's just
those are the days.
Yeah, he's just got wrestling bootleg.
The recorded VHSs and DVDs.
Yes, he's had all his VHSs transferred, and he keeps them organized in like books. And so awesome. He won't mind me calling him a nerd when he.
Well, let him know if he ever wants to come on.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. And of course, he was the ZZ Top tech forever. And then when Dusty passed away, it was kind of birthright is like, hey, you're a member of the family. Why don't you start playing bass? And that's where he's at now. He's on the road right now. He left 2 weeks ago, and they'll be out, I think, until Thanksgiving or so. And then he comes home, and then we bug him with Tojo stuff. And I get to hang out with him from Thanksgiving until about March when they go back out. So hopefully we'll play some shows, and we're working on new material. That's kind of how the long distance relationship goes. It's
cool, man. So other than wrestling, what are some of the lyrical inspirations for the new album?
Okay. This is interesting. Elwood will demo, like he'll come up with like a cool guitar part, and he'll work on it for a while and just record it on his laptop in GarageBand and send it to me, usually with a title that it doesn't mean anything and is not really meant to last or anything. Yeah, but I took it as a challenge when because everything's a wrestling term. He'll just label them a wrestling term. So I took it as a challenge without telling him that I was just going to use his title and write to whatever the title was. And so the lyrics aren't necessarily about, they're honestly not about wrestling at all. It's just kind of using wrestling terms and stuff metaphorically.
Yeah, kind of as that vessel.
And it's more of just my own personal challenge of like, can I write to this and figure out something crafty to make out of like the phrase "loser leave town" or whatever, like all these wrestling terms from that era. And then quietly, I don't want to say it too loudly, but we've been lucky with the Memphis territorial stuff because it was always in such flux and so screwy. Vince couldn't buy it, and no one owns it, and so we
so you could sample it and stuff.
Yeah, we're always in a. I've done.
I was going to ask if you had any pushback about that or anything.
We haven't. That's
awesome.
We honestly haven't. And the weird thing is, like, be careful what you wish for. We're big fans of like Jim Cornette's podcast, and he's talked about Tojo. He's talked about the band on the podcast.
Oh my god!
That's awesome. Which is great, but at the other side of that is you're shitting your pants because you're like, okay, maybe
what is people going to say to me?
We don't want people coming for us. But ultimately, it's all out of love. And believe me when I tell you, we're not making any money. You can't come at us
for nothing.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, here you come get these 2 nickels. I'm trying to rub you. But so that the lyrics are basically I use these wrestling terms as like a jumping off point, and then I can't control my politics sometimes and just my thoughts on the world. So somehow that all wraps up.
That all leaks out. Yeah.
And then, every song's like strangely personal to me. The first time I've really been around like 3 musicians, I don't think they like, especially when we recorded the 10-inch, until we went in the studio, they didn't know anything about what I was singing because we just practiced in a place where you really couldn't hear anything. Yeah. And so they were like, oh, I didn't know that's what the song was about. It's like, and so it is kind of, they don't really know until we record the songs, I don't think, what the songs are about. And then they're like, oh, well, shit.
You just pull the brass knuckles out of your trunks and be like, ah.
Yeah, exactly.
Hit them with faithful lyrics.
That's kind of it. So I don't know. I mean, we discuss this all the time because the band's not really about wrestling. Not a lot of people, until you explain it, know who Tojo is. And that's taken off with some wrestling fans, which we think's awesome. But it's also, you don't have to know anything about wrestling to just go.
Just enjoy your music.
Yeah.
Some kick-ass noise rock.
So, yes. And we're like, we have songs that don't have any wrestling samples and stuff in them. Yeah. And it's like, we always have the debate of like, should we add samples here or not? But it's almost like you'll find a sample that would just work so perfectly rhythmically and everything, like the cadence of whatever's going on, that you're just like, oh shit, we got to put that in there, so we end up giving it. Now Will and Darren, the rhythm section, they don't give a shit about wrestling much at all. It's just Elwood and I nerding out. They're probably kind of forced to hear more about wrestling than they want to. Oh well.
I've been into it on and off for 40-something years. She just got into it a couple years ago, but she's like, when it comes to newer stuff, she's like the smartest mark ever. Like, with the beginning of the match, she's like, I know exactly what's going to happen. I'm and then it ends up happening. I'm like, I didn't even see that coming.
I think that's a little over exaggerated, but thanks.
One weird part of my history that just fell in my lap. I worked a job for the city government in Lexington. And from that job, I ended up meeting someone who was kind of the general manager of one of the radio stations in town. And I ended up in a weird, dumbass thing. I won a trip through the radio station to the Bahamas. And that guy was on the trip. And he kept going, I'm doing this show. Come down in the morning and do a show. And I was like, man, I'm on vacation. Why do I want to get up at 8 in the Bahamas, But I ended up going down a couple of times and just doing the radio show with him, and we had a good time. And then I got back, and a couple of weeks later, he was like, man, what would you think about coming on this afternoon show and reading the news with this dude? And I'm like, dude, I don't know how to do any of that shit. I'm not interested in doing that. And he was like, oh, come on, come give it a try. And if you don't like it, obviously you don't have to do it. And they this radio station in town had just changed its format from like right-wing politics to like it's going to be all local. And we're going to do talk radio all day long, and it's all local stuff. But they brought in all dudes from out of town. In the radio station, Infinite Wisdom was like a guy from Indianapolis, a guy from New York, and a guy from Chicago to come in and do like local talk. And so they wanted me to like, the guy from Indianapolis was kind of like a low budget, stern character sort of thing. And so he had this whole idea that he wanted like a producer to do some talking and then the news person to do some talking. And then he would just riff off all of it, you know? And so I went in and I read the news and I was terrible. I was nervous. I was like, I don't want to do this. But I went back, like I decided I'd do like the whole week. And by the end of the week, I wasn't as nervous. And I'd read the news and then he'd make some comment on it. And then I started like making comments back and we kind of had a little rapport going. I did that for about a month. And then the main guy who had asked me to do it calls me in and he's like, look, man, you're carrying his show. You're funnier than this guy because he does no homework at all. He just, he wants you there so he can be even lazier. I'm like, that's not true, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, I've got a slot from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Why don't you do that? And I was like, I don't know if I could do a whole, I was like 3 hours of talking. I don't know if I can do that. Same thing. He's like, come in and try it for a week, blah, blah, blah. First show, I had a friend that I had met through my other band. Our bass player had been friends with this guy. And he...
Ed Gein, Ted Bundy's Volkswagen?
Yeah, and named after Ed Gein's car. I'm glad you brought that up. This friend had just taken a production assistant job at WCW. And a complete lark. He had been a news guy in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and him and his roommate both worked for this small station. They had relocated to Atlanta with the idea that they were going to go to work for CNN. Like, let's just move down there, apply for jobs until we get in CNN. He went and he applied. He went and they had a job opening for a production assistant at WCW. But he had to basically say he didn't know anything about wrestling. They didn't want any marks. They didn't want anybody who knew anything about wrestling. They just wanted you to be a TV guy. So he lied. He got this gig, and then about a month in, he realized he was a production assistant, but there were no producers. Like there was like nobody above him really, and they just started giving him work to do, and he ended up as the producer of like the European pay-per-views.
Oh wow, that's
so
awesome.
Here I am, get this new little radio gig, and it's a call-in show, and they're like, you can talk about whatever you want. And I was like, okay, it's going to be dick jokes, wrestling. So long story short, I'm like, first show, who am I going to get? I'll see if I can get Jason to come on and we'll talk about wrestling. Now, this was the absolute heyday of Monday Night Wars. I mean, it was hot. Everybody was talking about it. It was Attitude Era. So I'm like, if I can get Jason to come on for an hour and we'll just talk about the Monday Night Wars and WCW. So I call him. He's like, oh, yeah, man, I'll come on. He goes, you want me to get any wrestlers? I was like, yeah, whatever.
He's like, not even a question.
He's like, yeah. He's like, I can probably get Raven, and he's like, some lower tier guys or whatever. And I'm like, okay.
Fuck yeah.
And then the funny part about Jason is he can do all the impersonations. Like he do all these voices. Whatever. Long story short, I get Jason on. And the phone lines just like back up. It was supposed to be like an hour-long segment. We do 3 hours on wrestling, and the phones never stop. And we so the first time I'm on, we tape it all. And when I get off the air, I take that tape and I go put it in the boss's like mailbox or whatever. And so the next day I call and I was like, hey, did you listen to tape? He goes, no, man, I don't want to make you nervous. I'm going to give you a week before I listen to any of it. I was like, you should listen to it and look at the phone logs. And he's like, oh, did you have all your friends call in? I was like, dude, I didn't have anyone call.
It's like, I don't even have that many friends.
I was like, I didn't tell anyone I had a radio show. Are you kidding? I was like, I don't want to get on there and fuck up and be totally embarrassed, Yeah. And I was like, I didn't tell friends to call because I didn't want friends to know I was on the radio. And so that turned into like every Monday, we would just talk wrestling because it was going to happen that night, and then I met a local promoter, and then I ended up like managing and taking bumps and all crazy stuff.
That's rad.
So I managed like from the ice, which was crazy to think about. Decades later, I ended up like being the manager for Rip Rogers, who was ICW.
I haven't thought about that name in a minute.
Yes, and then Madman Pondo, a couple shows with him, and then I did about 3 shows with Ian Rotten, who was Axel and Ian in
EC Dub,
and then he started his own promotion, and I'm not going to say much because I don't want to get beat up, but it was pretty wild. And I would just, we'd go these small little like gymnasiums, never in Lexington. No, there were never any shows in Lexington. They were always rural. Did do a show in Louisville, but it was mainly little rural things. And I would kind of come out and do the hill manager thing and call everyone rednecks and blah, blah, blah. I went to the dollar store and found these little tiny half-size cans of Spam. And I would
I've seen that.
I had like a bad suit on, and I would just throw cans of Spam.
Hell yeah. Get out of here. That's awesome.
But I mean, it was fun, but at the same time, I was like, you don't really want that lifestyle in a teeny tiny no budget, because they were like, man, come and do this, come and do that. I was like, nah, I'm not gonna.
Not for $25 and a hot dog.
Yeah. A good old I've never seen hot dogs cooked in a crock pot.
Oh no.
Okay, I've definitely cooked hot dogs in a crock pot.
Well, no, but think about it at wrestling.
That's true.
They run out of hot dogs, and then it takes 3 hours to get the hot dog because they're cold in the crock pot. I'm like, you need water to boil.
Yes. Yep.
So if you got the early hot dog, you were good. If you got the late in the evening hot dog,
you were pretty much you were cooked literally.
It's a perfect end and segue to whatever else you guys want to talk about. I just thought I better get my talk in there about taking a bump or two back in the day.
And hey, I mean, you kind of invented a podcast about wrestling before there were podcasts about wrestling in a way.
Didn't even know. I mean, that was what was so weird. That it got to the point like, because, I can't take much credit for it because it was happening in our quote unquote culture. Everyone was talking wrestling. So it was just low hanging fruit to get on there. I know a little bit about wrestling, and everyone in the world's talking about it. So it was kind of
did you know Bob Mould from Husker Du wrote for WCW?
Absolutely.
Dude, when I found that out, that blew my mind. I was like,
and it's so wild. At the time when it was happening, at first I thought, it goes back to my friend who worked there, so I knew. But I mean, it was like when people were talking about it, no one believed it. They're like, "Oh, that's a work," and I'm like, "Dude, it's not a work. He's that into wrestling." Yeah.
I read his autobiography, and he's talking about growing up in Minnesota and AWA and everything. Yeah. And I'm like, oh man, he's a real one.
I know, it's crazy.
Well, so speaking of, all of this history that you have personally had with wrestling, what is maybe the wildest thing that you've personally witnessed, like for the first time at a show or even on those, Saturdays on TV?
Well, I mean, I was Kaufman and Lawler. That was pretty crazy. I mean, they came to Lexington. They wrestled part of that gimmick in Rupp Arena.
That's rad.
And I mean, that's kind of a near and dear thing to my heart because I love Andy Kaufman years later. And that's just crazy to think how ridiculous and wild that was, and how we all bought it. I mean, how we were in on it 100%, like fucking Andy Kaufman, you know, it's like
Velaka's beating up women.
yeah. Oh, that man, my grandmother. Let him get in there with a man. Let him get in there with a man.
Love it.
Yeah.
I think that's
Get his ass kicked in there with a man.
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, it was so crazy.
I
mean, that's pretty wild. And I mean, wrestling, you know, matches or moments that have just been great. I mean, Hell in the Cell, I think probably will go down and like
infamy.
anyone who saw it. Well, you can see it now and it's still just as shocking. But
yes,
I remember, you know, watching it live and just going, what in the hell is going on?
Dude, like I've loved Mick Foley since he was Cactus Jack, and like, you know, just seeing like his family in the front row crying, like our dad's dead.
I know.
Then he just like gets up like a zombie. He's like, "Get off me, funker!"
Like, we watched it. This friend of ours who had a big screen TV, and we'd watch every pay-per-view. Joe Turner, rest his soul, big wrestling and punk rocker himself.
Yeah.
And we'd watch it at Joe's house. And I remember we were just like the big screen. And I was standing up, like glaring, going, "Is that his tooth in his nose?" You know, that one shot, the camera gets that close up, and Mick just kind of gives a big cheese, and he's like, the tooth is like right there. What am I seeing? And for it to be shocking, even though ECW was, you know, kind of going over the top every week, and for it to still just come off as mind blowing as it was. And at that point, you know, I've seen Japanese crazy matches and all this stuff, but it was just for the big mainstream product to go that length in that match. It's historic, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah, that's definitely that's at the top of the list for me. Like that, and like Funk and Mick Foley in Japan, like all those matches super brutal.
Yeah. Sabu, Rob Van Dam.
The Sabu and Funker when he just takes his bicep up. Oh God!
Yeah, you can name a ton of Sabu matches. I mean,
R.I.P.
Yeah. The you know, wrestling those shows with Ian Rotten, I saw real true violence close up that was a little like, oh, you know, a lot of super gluing the old head shut from full on chair shots. There was no like, I saw dudes that, you know, were working. The dressing room was the back of the U-Haul that they had rented to bring the ring to the show. And, you know, guys just leaking gallons of blood, and Ian and a couple people in the back trying to clean them up and crazy glue their heads together. And when you're a guy that's like, I just do a radio show and I'm getting ready to go out there, you get a little like
nervous.
You think you're trusting them because, hey, I'm doing them a favor. I'm promoting the show. It's bringing more people out. But that still doesn't mean that they're just not going to, because Ian would just look at you and go, like in the ring, you trust me, don't you?
Like, I don't know. I've seen some of your matches.
That was just the clue that something was getting ready to come, right? And so I was like, I was always like a little leery if he's going to look at me and go, "You trust me, don't you?" And then I was going to take a chair shot, and you know, and I didn't really want to take a chair shot.
Oh man!
Not the way they were doing. I was like, "Whoa, dudes were, you know, Wolfie D."
Instant case of CTE.
Yes, I watched a match with Wolfie D, and it was one of the guys in the local promotion who was kind of one of their bigger guys, and I can't remember the name he wrestled under. And it was an absolute bloodbath. I mean, an absolute bloodbath. And they stacked 3 tables, and Wolfie D drove the guy through like all 3.
Oh shit!
It was so crazy. And then after the match was over, that the poor local guy. I mean, he was just complete crimson mask. And, I'm in the bathroom and he comes in to like clean up and I, what do you say? I just go, man, great match. And he's like, thanks, brother. Dude. He's like talking to you and it's like that pulsing. Like,
you're trying like arterial spray everywhere.
Great match, man. Thanks, brother. Like, dude. Yeah.
That's
it's
awesome.
like, I want the safety of my little radio show.
Yeah.
Why I agreed to this. Yeah.
Right.
Well, back to music. What would you say, like, some of your like favorite albums, like just 5, just off the rip?
Okay. I got to go Replacements, Let It Be.
Ooh.
I'm going to go Jesus Lizard Goat.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Cal's Cunning Stunts. Oh, God, I'm going to have to go back in time. I should probably pick something that is somehow influential. I mean, the first Sex Pistols record, probably makes that list. That leaves me one. God, top 5. I should pick something current, but I like a lot of stuff. Just maybe not my favorites. Let me think. Oh, man. At the same time, wrestling. I mean, I was a Kiss mark. Come on. So I'm going to go Dress to Kill. Yeah.
Hey, that's 5 great albums, man. And like, I love all those albums from the bottom of my heart too, man. It's
kind of, I mean, if you're like the front man in a band and you're around my age and Kiss wasn't some sort of influence, I don't know what you're doing.
You're lying, essentially.
Yeah, because I mean, you just had to buy into like the early, like, I mean, I was, late elementary school, middle school in the, I mean, I skipped school. My first concert ever at Rupp was my dad taking me to see Kiss, Destroyer Tour.
Yeah.
Oh,
Destroyer Tour. And can we, is this thing on? Can we say R-rated type stuff? So
yes, absolutely.
We're sitting up in like, we're not in the upper arena and we're not down on the floor. We're in whatever you call it, mid atrium sort of area. And Peter Criss, they do the whole thing. Peter Criss comes out, sits on a box and sings Beth. And the girl starts blowing the guy next to us. Like, gets down on her knees. Dude.
What?
And my dad goes, we got to go. And I didn't know. Like, I'm like, I mean, I know something's up, but
just not fully.
I was like, best romantic song.
Or at least one to just get busy too.
Yeah, I mean, the mood just overtakes you. You're like, honey, I love this song. Can I blow you?
I don't think anybody's going to refuse that. Let's be honest.
Hey, I saw people have sex at a Slayer concert. So
I once saw Butthole Surfers and a guy before like Ed Hall opened and the guy was just jamming to Ed Hall the whole time and dancing around. And I'll never forget him because he had an orange, like what would be considered a jail jumpsuit. That's basically what he had on. And he was just like jumping around us. And, they take a break in the middle and Butthole Surfers come out and they open this like smoke machine and just crazy. And I look down and that guy's asleep on the floor. There's no seating. Like we're just in a club. And he's just laying on the floor and he's like, he rocked out for 30 straight minutes.
This Fred Hall.
Self out.
Took a break and he sound asleep and he never woke up the whole show.
And it's
music stops, lights come up. He stands up, stretches, yawns, and just turns down and walks out. Like,
how the fuck do you fall asleep at a Butthole Surfer?
Thank you. I mean, I'm like, the guy used to just be like, you know what? I need some rest. I'm going to go Butthole Surfer.
Right. Unless, though, alternate theory, maybe Butthole Surfers is what he uses to fall asleep. And so it was just
that's a lullaby.
Cozy time, you know?
You have serious mental issues if that's your sleepy time.
Me and my Butthole Surfers just snooze and it's cool.
I mean, it is also, I'm sure it's like one of those pre-game situations. Like, man, I'm going to Butthole Surfers, eat as many drugs as I can.
and then
he's like, yeah. And then it's like, man, I missed the whole Butthole Surfers.
The Tango Butthole Surfers.
It's still not as good as that guy getting blown during Beth.
Oh, dude.
I think that's got to be my new favorite story.
Yeah,
maybe now that they're going to get their Trump Kennedy Awards thing, maybe they could have me come tell that story at the Kennedy.
Yes. You know what? I second that.
See that? I mean,
when I heard that, I was like,
I mean, I'll do it if you want me to. I don't want to, but I mean, everyone's saying that the ratings will be through the roof.
Exactly. We don't want to disappoint nobody.
Yeah. Tell the best story. It'll really bring the culture up in the room.
I mean, it couldn't be any worse than anything that anybody in there's done.
Yeah, true.
Wretched hive of scum and villainy.
You look back at some of those Kiss songs, and man, they're like, those Kiss songs are on the Epstein list.
Going blind. Yeah. I'm 93. You're 16.
Yeah, Christine 16.
Yeah. Black Diamond.
Yes. Yeah. That's pretty crazy. Yeah, I'm like, my friend was like, man, I can't believe the whole thing with Kiss and Trump. And I was like, man, dude, we know some of those songs are on the Epstein list.
I mean, it totally makes sense. Gene Simmons, all he cares about is money.
All right. Here's another Kiss story. So years later in high school, the Alive 2 double platinum era, that tour, we decided we were going to skip school that day and go to Rupp and hang out and see if we could see them without their makeup. This is when no one's seeing them without their makeup. And so we go, the Rupp Arena's attached to like a shopping center called Lexington Center. It just has a bunch of shops and restaurants and stuff in there. So you can kind of go into the hotel through the shopping center. It's kind of easy to avoid security back then, There was still security around there, but you could kind of like, hey, I'm just hanging out and, shopping and looking around the mall and then go in. So we were hanging out and not seeing anyone that looked even remotely connected to like the Kiss entourage or anything. And we were like, maybe they're not staying here or whatever. And me and my friend, his name was Stevie Moss, and the guy's been a sports videographer his whole career in Lexington. He's still around. He's a super dude. But a group of us had all skipped school, and I think it was Stevie. No, it was another guy named Mike, and I were coming up the back steps and just going to come out, to open the door and come out on the floor. And we opened up the door, and here comes Gene Simmons. And we're both like, oh shit, there's Gene Simmons. And he's like, here, we're just like locked. And he's like, walks just right towards us and, doesn't even flinch at all. And then he gets to his room and he turns and we're like the next room up. And I was just like, I looked at Mike and I was like, I got to say something in my head. And I go, are you Gene Simmons? My infinite high school wisdom. Are you Gene Simmons? I go, are you Gene Simmons? And he looks at me as the door opens and goes, no, Roberta Flack. And I literally was like, who's Roberta Flack? I don't know who Roberta Flack is. Yeah. But yeah, that's my Gene Simmons story. He was everything you think he would be. Just an asshole who just looked at two kids who are just like frozen. No, Roberta Flack. And that was the line. And then I was like, who's Roberta Flack? Home and find out who Roberta Flack is.
We will do our due diligence.
If there's only Google, at that time you had to wait for somebody to tell you.
Exactly.
I just had to find someone who will tell me this information.
Had to go down to the Woolworths and just like start flipping through the records.
I'll go to the library and get in the card catalog and see.
Oh, God.
Exactly. Good old Dewey Decimal System. Gotta find that. Then gotta do some math. Find that section. Yep.
So we're not going to keep you on too much longer. I'm sure you got shit to do. Last question. If you could wrestle anyone dead or alive.
Oh, geez.
Who would it be?
Gene Simmons.
Okay, this is a two-part question.
Now. Dude, I know I'd take him now. Old damn knees. Brittle bone bastard. I could take him.
Well, would there be any stipulations?
Oh, yes. He would have all of his Kennedy Center interviews would have to be done as Roberta Flack.
Yeah.
And also, if you could play with any band, current, past, broken up.
Wow. Dude, that's
a deep question.
That's a deep one. And especially when I think about Elwood, because he's got to live out some of those damn fantasies. Every now and then we talk about it. Like he's been lucky enough to be on stage with Willie Nelson, Jeff Beck, Alice Cooper, so many
legends.
And and then he's, it's like
plays with two legends.
He's like, I'm sitting there looking at these guys, just going, I shouldn't be here. Crazy, I mean, it's just crazy. But oh man, okay, let me think. Like some bands, as much as you love them, you wouldn't want to play with them. It's like, you wouldn't want to get killed by by like some of these guys. Just like you're going to eat you alive. They're so good on stage, But I mean, we talk about this all the time because we're of that age where it's like, man, the 90s were so good, and so I could, I think of those 90s era bands, and you can just about go through the list and name, whether it's Nirvana, Alice in Chains, or the more noisier stuff. I'd play with any of those bands. I love those bands. Back in the day, we both, Elwood and I, in our old bands, got opportunity, to play with some of our heroes of that moment, of that era. And I think about it now, like, I'd play with Jesus Lizard tomorrow. That was the one thing in the 90s that we were so close multiple times to playing with Jesus Lizard. In Louisville, one time in particular, we were on the bill and then got bumped when Touch and Go added Evergreen, who was a Louisville band who had some Slint connections and stuff, moved us off the bill and them on the bill, which kind of bummed me out because I played with Cows, Laughing Hyenas, Unsane, and all of those bands. If I would choose them today too. I mean, there's bands I still listen to them. I mean,
Chris Spencer, Unsane, one of the best to do it, and he saved her. we went to see Steel Pole Bathtub a while back, and she was not feeling good.
We played with them. We played with them in Minneapolis. Steel Pole Bathtub.
Dude, they're great. I never got to see them back in the day, but dude, they sounded amazing. They got Noah from Neurosis playing keyboards and shit for them.
Shit.
Yeah,
yeah, it was really awesome. Yeah, like that night we took some stuff. I wasn't feeling super great, and then it was just like I was in the moment, and then all of a sudden I'm like, everybody's like picking. Like, just dropped for
I'm
like
on this side of her, and Chris Spencer is on the left side of her, and we just grab her.
Jeez,
yeah, I was just like, okay. Like,
do you fake that completely?
Hey guys, what's up? Not embarrassing at all, but yeah.
You fake that completely so Chris Spencer would have to pick you up.
Absolutely. I was like, I got eyes. All right, here we go. Eagles Landing. Here we go.
Yeah, it's so funny because we played with him and he was such a nice guy. But I'd seen him previous to that, and he's so intense. I didn't expect him to be like a nice dude.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's just so chill. Like, I used to live in Austin before I moved out here and saw him play there because the new lineup, like half those dudes are from Austin.
Right.
And
Right.
like, yeah, just like randomly see him out and he's just a chill ass dude. Like,
the time we played with them, have you ever heard of the band Glazed Baby?
yeah.
So the Glazed Baby guitarist was like touring with them and was going, like, they were going to add him as the second guitarist, and we knew Glazed Baby. We had played a ton of shows together, and all of a sudden he was like, they haven't asked me to join, but I'm rehearsing with them, and they keep telling me, at a show they're just going to kind of do it. We're just going to do it. And so when they came to Lexington, he was with them and everything. I was like, have you got on stage yet? He's like, he's kind of dicking me around a little bit. He got me selling merch and he's like, which is cool. He's like, but we're still rehearsing. And he keeps telling me, we're going to do it. And they kept him around pretty much that whole tour. And I think he might've got on stage for like a couple songs by the end of the tour. And then Chris just basically said, yeah, I didn't think I could, play rhythm and lead on some of these new songs, but I can do it, so I'm not going to need you. I think it was,
But hey,
and they're better
to play with Unsane.
Yeah, they're better as a three-piece. Yeah. And Glazed Baby were like a super awesome band that I think two of those guys are dead already. And they were younger than me. Yeah, it's crazy. You hear about it every day, man. I get like text messages. You're like, hey, man, do you remember that one guy? I'm like, oh, yeah. It's like,
yeah. What's he up to? Oh, no.
Hey, at least Ozzy, his first order of business was taking Hulk Hogan out, man.
Snipered it down over there.
Yeah, dude, that's when Terry Boulder came to Memphis, that was
Thunder Lips.
Yeah, that was the heyday of the Rupp Arena shows. And, I had two female cousins that loved wrestling, but they were as like marked out, skanky cousins when it came to wrestlers. They were like, it was that like, oh, there's a sweaty body. I'm just going to rub all over it when they come through the crowd or whatever.
Okay.
And my cousin, she kissed old Terry Boulder.
Ooh, got a little
on the
smooch
mouth,
in there.
tongue and all, like right at the in the walkout.
He shot her shot.
And I mean, she talked about he had his chest hair shaved like a tornado. It was like
oh my god,
like in a thing. Yeah. Yeah.
She's like, I love it. Let's do this thing.
You could buy these 4x6. Cornette shot them back in the day. You could buy these 4x6 photos. Mm-hmm. They were always the wrestlers standing in front of, like, it must have been in Memphis, this weird kind of royal blue mat. The background's like always the same, and they're all just like posing, and they were 75 cents each. And man, my skanky cousins, they were all over the hot wrestlers and their color photos. And I think about this all the time. I was like, man, I wonder what happened to all that shit that we bought at wrestling matches.
Ooh, that's a damn good question. It's interesting because like my siblings and I are cleaning out my parents' garage, and there are stuff in there that has been packed away for at least 15 years, but it's like stuff of ours that we thought was gone, we're like, why'd you keep this like little thing? She's like, but you went to this concert. And I was like, that's cool, but it's not me anymore. But it's interesting that you say that, because I do kind of wonder what happens sometimes to our childhood things.
I remember my grandmother, I had baseball and NFL football cards, and I had a shit ton of them in like a beer case, like an old beer case.
Yeah.
The friend of mine who I was mentioning earlier, who was a jobber, his dad was a beer truck driver. And so we would end up with like those heavy cardboard cases that used to, that actually used to come in. And so I had that thing full of cards. And over the summer, I had gone to stay with my dad, and I came back home to my grandmother's, and I was like, where'd all my cards go?
Oh.
Like, I hadn't probably looked at them in like a year or whatever. And something that motivated me and my dad's to like look at these cards. And I was like, what happened to my grandmother's? Like, I threw all those out. I thought you didn't play with those anymore.
Oh, no. You'd probably be a millionaire
what
now.
What are you talking about?
Oh, man.
Like, she goes, I went through that closet in there and I threw about a bunch of stuff. I didn't think you played with those anymore.
Just the I didn't think you played with them, and just the dagger in the heart.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, but these, it's like, that's not a toy, it's an action figure.
Yes. That's
Oh man, yeah. The first local wrestling match. I think it was a USWA match. Remember Nightmare Danny Davis?
Oh, dude, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, he was there. Like, he was like super nice to me. He was like one of my favorite wrestlers when I was a kid.
Man.
And then he ended up starting OVW and everything. So,
yeah. Well, they got the Danny Davis Arena in Louisville where where there's a new OVW, obviously not the same, but Al Snow's running it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have you seen the Netflix series about it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
the one dude that's like all out of shape and he's like, this is my last shot. Now he's in AEW and like he's like jacked and like their gimmick is going over really well. I'm like,
I know. I did not think he would make it. No way.
No way. Dude, yeah. And now, man, he got it together and like they blow it up. I'm happy, man. Like,
I know, it's cool. That show was really well done when it was going on, because I work in video production in my day job, and it's like when all that was going on, I knew quite a few people who were working on the actual, putting the Netflix show together to local shooters, and they were like, "You're gonna flip out how good it." They're like, this dude who's directing it knows his shit. He's like, it's going to be good. And it really was. I was blown away how good it was.
There's a one on Vice it's also called The Wrestlers, but the lead singer of this punk band Fucked Up. His name's Damian Abraham, where he goes all over the world, like all the different types of wrestling. That
was fucking
I love that band too. His band's
absolutely
great. Yeah, he was the inspiration for me starting this podcast because
that's awesome.
Like just
his podcast
finding like I mean I knew a couple guys in bands and stuff and like comedians and stuff that were into wrestling, but like just all the people that he's had on there that like I'm like, oh, for real?
I know. Yeah, and his band's great, and he's really good at the podcasting, and then the whole wrestling thing is just. I remember years ago when he first did that Vice thing that was on, what was it, the CZW or whatever, like the total hardcore, like outdoor, that show,
outlaw mud shows.
That and he's like at that show, and it's just an absolute. This bloodbath, but he's got like a longer form thing because like the promoter, it's depressing as hell. He's got like all of his DVD burners in the back, like in his interview and stuff, and he's selling all the stuff out of his house and everything. And they're, his wife's like, he needs to stop this because they're like $1 billion in debt.
Oh, no.
It's like the most depressing, and then. He takes an absolute throttling. He's cut up. They going through glass panes and fluorescent light tubes and everything. And then they dig. I think they try to bury him alive. They got a backhoe. And,
oh shit!
And I mean, and then
that's too much.
And then they're in the back with like. Afterwards with like a water hose, just cleaning him off and picking the glass out.
Oh, no.
Terrible.
Oh God.
It's on YouTube if you
Yeah.
And it was like the first, it was before they gave him like the whole show. It was like the first thing he had done. And I was like, if that's your first show and it doesn't get you a show, then people are fucking, because he's like watching it like, holy shit, these people are.
Yeah, like
These people are entertainers.
Yeah, true. I mean, wrestling is an art form, you know?
Yes,
that's right,
absolutely.
dude. You're absolutely.
You put your heart and soul into it, or it's just fucking bullshit. Like,
yeah,
you know? Same with music. Like, you either got to give it your all or don't do it at all. Like,
that's it. I mean, you just got to commit. I mean, that's why, like, when people who go, I don't, or I grew out of wrestling, or I no longer watch wrestling, or whatever. Like, I don't know how you grow out of like that kind of, if the storytelling's good, that sort of just drama and entertainment. You know, it's like, you know, I've given up on being entertained. Oh, okay.
I mean, I dropped out for probably like at the beginning of Ruthless Aggression, like, you know, when they started, you know, toning everything down, I kind of dropped out. And then when I moved to Austin and they had like a bunch of indie stuff like there. And I'm just like, oh, wow, man. Saw this guy there's a venue in Austin called the Mohawk, and it's like outdoors. And there's 2 balconies, and somebody got power bombed from the first balcony into the ring with like 2 chairs just side by side, and just got power bombed into it. I was like,
dude, that's crazy. But I know exactly where the Mohawk is, and that patio and everything. That's crazy.
And then like a couple months later, like AEW started, but it wasn't really on anything. They hadn't got their TV deal yet, so I was just watching clips. And have you ever heard of a band from Ohio called the Unholy Two? Oh, you should check them out. They love wrestling. Like, cool. They're fucking awesome. Super noisy. Fucking just 2-piece. Well, sometimes they're 3-piece.
All right.
But I've got one of their shirts. It's got the NWO Great Muda on it.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
All right, man. We're running out of time, so we're gonna let you go. Let you get back to what you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we really appreciate you coming on. And hey, if you ever decided you want to come back on, before we go, just plug whatever you got going on. Man.
Hey, you can find whatever it is we're doing. We're only really in two places, and that's Bandcamp, and it's the tojoyamamoto.bandcamp.com, and then we're on Instagram, and that is at Tojo.Yamamoto. Who in the hell stole that username? I had to
shake fist at him, you know.
All right, man. Well, you have a great night.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you. This was awesome.